Hello and welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast, hosted by Daryl Dittmer, where we talk about the fight or fights that so many of us engage in this lifetime, as well as ways to potentially alleviate those fights. Let's get started. Welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer, and I am so happy and privileged to have my good friend, brother, author, and educator, Khalid Banks, with me today. Welcome, Khalid.
Thank you, Daryl. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, man.
You know, it's wonderful. We don't have a necessarily a long journey together, but I swear it feels like from the beginning of time that we've connected and you know known each other and we've come together in so many cool and important ways, including being authors. And, you know, which to me is one of my great finds in terms of books was your book, which is called Awareness is Evolution. And I loved your book. And my wife loved your book, and my boys have your book. So, you know, it's just been a really cool thing for us to experience you via your book. And if you would, you know, maybe just take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about your book.
Of course, man. I appreciate you guys taking the time to read it. It's the utmost, the highest level of flattery that you can get. You write a book and you expose yourself in a way, open yourself up to people, and you would love it to be received. And so when it's received and you hear beautiful compliments from intelligent people such as yourself and Murph, you know, it's really great. It's beautiful. The book is about directing yourself inward. It's about self-inquiry and the power of self-inquiry. It's about self-empowerment through self-inquiry. It's what I did. It's pointing people towards the path that I took myself to change my life, change my choices, my thoughts. Happiness is an inside job. And so I discovered that going inside, and now I'm happy. It's letting people know that your savior is not outside of you. You know, that you are that you don't need anything else. You don't need anyone else. And the best thing you can do for yourself and for your loved ones and anyone you'll meet in the future is study and know yourself, become intimately close with yourself. So in somewhat of a nutshell, that is what it's about. When you discover yourself, you get a map about everyone else. You know, when you intimately see yourself and understand the suffering inside yourself, then you can see it in someone else, recognize it in them, and talk them through it because you've taken that journey yourself. You know, whether you want to call it God or creator or the universe or the source, that's inside of you. And so that unlimited resource is in you, and you are that energy. So exploring that is a powerful thing.
It is, and thank you for that. And what I love about it, and what I've loved about the book, is that there's so much realness to you and to your writing, and for me it just absolutely resonated. And I know for, you know, my wife Murph it resonated as well, and it's just such a cool thing. And you know, the fact that we met actually over Twitter, and I couldn't help myself, and I think you were kind of the same. Like, all right, I gotta figure out who this dude is, because so many things are just so aligned, right? I mean, amazingly aligned. And I think that's because we've both, been on this journey for, for a period of time, and we've looked inside, and we've, discovered certain things about ourselves, and also our larger selves, and like you said, whatever you want to call that, the universe, the source, creator. I think that is mostly immaterial, right? In my journey, and I think also in your journey, it's just, hey, it is. And I think that's sort of what we come to, at a point. It is, and we are, and the less we define those things, the better. So, and the title to me is in particular, I love the title. And would you mind sharing where that came from? How did you come up with that title? It's a beautiful title.
Oh, thank you. Awareness is evolution. And so it's through that realization, beneath, before, behind, um, everything is awareness, pure awareness. And that is what we are. Everything else is kind of stacked up illusion above that. So before we were born, we were. Before we entered into a body, before anything, there was just pure awareness. And that pure awareness is still here. That was present when you were 2 years old, when you were 12 years old, when you were 22, 32, 42. It's been there. Now it's watched the evolution or the development of your mind, of your brain, right? In your body, the aging of those things. But the unchanged aspect of you that was always conscious of you, of this experience, that is just pure awareness. And so the more, that's one extreme. The more you become self-aware, the more you become aware of your surroundings, aware of your mind, aware of your body, aware that you have these things and that they're not you, the disassociation of the mind and the body, then you begin to expand in your comprehension. You begin to expand in your consciousness of your being and being around you and just pure being. Okay. And so then you can tap into the vastness of consciousness of what you are, of this awareness. And it expands the human experience. It removes a lot of the things that cause the suffering for us. And that is in the identification with the personalities. And we all have like endless amounts of personalities that we accumulate through various situations and friends and emotional memories and all these things we compile. To begin to shed a lot of those, it opens a lot of doors, and it definitely stops the suffering, which I see as it's not pointless. It's very educational. It's part of the reason why I wrote the book and how I got to self-discovery was being sick and tired of being sick and tired from just kind of suffering so much and being the muse for other people to suffer and just, being very uncomfortable and very depressed and all of these emotions. I wanted answers. And I tried all sorts of things. And it wasn't until I went in and started to learn and court and discover myself and really know God, the force that I call God. Um, wasn't until I began to have answers and quench the thirst that I had, and you know, have solutions to things that problem me and troubled me for so long. So that was my awareness expanding. And so the expansion of my awareness, the evolution of my awareness, was the remedy for a lot of my issues. And that's why I wrote the book. So if I can come out of where I was, then I believe that anyone can, because I was in some pretty dark and gloomy holes.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. And I just, it's beautiful to listen to you speak about that because it's so genuine and just so authentic. And I feel like, you talked a little bit about suffering, and I feel like, the suffering is something that we've done and something that we had to experience, and have to move through, to start to uncover what you mentioned was, pure awareness. And I kind of like, I haven't really thought about this so much before, but I do like the term the source, because I feel like that is, it's like a spring where we all start, where we all come from, and where our awareness uh is, and is our awareness. These things are all the same. And my journey, I think, was similar in many ways, but I also think certainly similar from the perspective of the suffering that I put myself through, and the suffering that I had to go through, to be able to move into a different realm, a different place for myself. And the work for me started, and the reason this podcast is named When I Stopped Fighting is because I had to look at that from the perspective of, and was pointed out to me decades ago, that most of my problems are because I'm fighting. I'm fighting myself. I'm fighting life. I'm fighting other people. And so, and I'm just relating each of our sort of journeys, because I feel like it's an uncovering. It's an uncovering of that awareness, and an uncovering of, what's going on with me, to start to dig out and dig down within me, to where I can experience my source and our source and the source. And that's interesting. So when I look at my journey, I look at it from the perspective of the fighting that I've had to let go of, which has been instrumental to me. And I was told a long time ago, and the quote was, as I was wrestling with life and wrestling with everybody and wrestling with myself mostly, the quote was, Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops. And I think, to me, it's just a different way of experiencing, how we can evolve, and how we can, tap into that awareness or that source. So does that bring anything up for you in terms of that fighting? Is that something that you experienced along that journey?
Yes, of course. What I've learned is life knows how to life. Um, our bodies know how to be bodies. And I say that and I make that contrast because they're exactly the same as within, so without. We don't know how to replicate cells. We don't know how to beat a heart. We don't know how to do anything, function our lungs. We don't know why and how our hands move, our feet. You know, we don't do any of that. It does it on its own. Life is the same way. Nature is the same way. A tree grows. The tree knows what to do. A seed knows what to do. We with minds feel and egos. We with minds and egos feel that we need to interject ourselves into the flow of nature and life and make it do something else, or make it, or we feel like we make it happen, and it's just not true. And so a lot of our suffering comes from when we interject ourselves into things and disrupt the natural flow of things. No, it should be this way. No, it should be that way. That's just wrong. That's terrible. So we label and we judge things. That's awful. It should be this way. I always wanted that. I that's not right. If only this could have happened. And so we torture ourselves from things years ago and from things that we are imagining, projecting for later. And we just try to interrupt, and we do interrupt life with regularity and stop the flow of life. We're fighting against life. And so if life was us in a little boat, right? We're trying to turn the boat around and grab rocks and stick sticks into the dirt and stop the boat and move the boat, because the river doesn't know where to take us. The boat doesn't know where to go. We do. We want to go on shore. We want to stop here. We want to disrupt. We want to fight against the flow of life. It's I guess to make another metaphor for that, it's like us eating wrong and trying to get our bodies to do something, or take it another direction. When we do that, we cause blockage, we cause disruption, we cause the turmoil and the suffering that we experience in life. When we go with the flow of life, it's an amazing thing that happens. Hey, stuff is happening for me in my favor. Who knew? I thought it was bad to be here. I didn't want to go there, and I end up here and I meet the best person that I could know. I meet a circumstance, I meet an opportunity. And that's how life is. When we stop fighting and go with the flow of life, life opens up and buds to us in a way that it's supposed to be. Life isn't supposed to be hard and torturous. Our minds, we do that to ourselves. And so what I discovered through my way, you discovered through your way, it's only one way. Stop fighting, stop resisting, go with the flow, and things open up, because everything is moving in your favor. Without us labeling it and judging it and calling this bad and good and terrible and wonderful, it just happens. So life knows how to life. Let's not fight it, right?
I love that. I really do. And life knows how to life. I couldn't agree more. It brings up for me, growing up with a, in the Midwest, Protestant work ethic. It was just what I was, here's your box of stuff. Here's what you're allowed to believe. Here's what you're allowed to think and say and all that sort of thing. And that's cool. Parents have a job to teach us things, and whether it's the right stuff, the wrong stuff, and different stuff, it just is what it is. And it's all good. But so I was imbued with this Lutheran, is how I grew up, education, and it was difficult for me to unravel that for myself, and not that I had to throw everything away or anything like that, but I had to relook, and I had to take the pieces and the parts and put them all. I like to think about it like I put them all out on a table and I'm looking at them and I'm like, okay, what is resonating? What is working for me in my life as far as how my internals are doing, and that was a big thing for me. But when I got involved in, and I'm sober and I've been sober for a long time, when I was reintroduced to the fact or the idea that it might make sense to rely on something greater than yourself. And I didn't know what that was, but since then I've come to understand that I don't need to define what that is. But when I was younger, I needed to define that for myself, and it was, as you mentioned, which I think is beautifully said. I needed to believe in whatever it is that allows my eyes to see, whatever it is that allows the grass to grow, that I can't do. This is not part of my repertoire of things that Daryl can do. Daryl can't do, he can't do the big stuff, the only thing I could do is just, deal with myself and make myself better. And one of the things that I needed to do, and I think, thank God, thank the creator, thank the source, that I found out early on that one of my big problems was the resistance, as you mentioned, in the fight. And how do I at least start to slow down that fight, and that's a lifelong process. That's a lifelong process, because, and who knows what happens after that? Who knows what happens after I check out of this rock? I might still be doing the same thing, and that's fine, because it's beautiful work, and it's beautiful to be, and I'm grateful that I'm able and have the opportunity to do that sort of work. So anyway, that was really well said. And I appreciate that you explain it in that way, because I heard a long time ago, pain is part of what happens in life, and suffering generally is optional. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And we perpetuate, and for me, I can promote suffering because I fight, and because I resist. And when I allow, which was one of my favorite words in the vocabulary, when I allow, I'm more evolved than when I'm not, than when I'm not allowing. So I know the fight for me has gotten much more subtle over time. Have you found that to be true for you as well? That you recognize places where you resist, where maybe 5 years ago you wouldn't have really been able to see that? Has that happened for you?
Yes, absolutely. I've been working on saying no less. I was it's funny. It's a story of my personality that was forged from my mother's personality. She says yes to everything. She buys and orders and sends. She would send money all to starving kids, and my father called her the biggest sucker in town. And so early on, it was just her and I, because my father transitioned when I was very young. And so I became her filter. And so I became the no person. And it would be, people would come to the car and try to solicit things, or to the door. And she would look to me I remember as early as 7 years old. And I would say, no, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. No, thank you. And I became that wall of no. And getting married many years later, my wife ran into the wall of no. I would start with no, and then talk it out, and then we would end up doing or agreeing to do whatever. So I've been becoming more aware, more cognizant of these qualities of myself, and saying yes a lot more, or catching myself saying no and then saying, well, why did I say no? Okay, let me go. Let me do it. Yes, I'll do it. Even if my mind is telling me I don't want to, or I don't feel like it. I've been saying, okay, let me not fight. Let me not resist the moment in the situation. Let me say yes to these things, because life knows how to life much better than me. I don't know what I need. I have ideas, and mine have got me in trouble a lot. So going with the stream of life, I practice that with regularity, and on different levels and in different fronts. But absolutely, I've been working on going with the flow.
That's great. And I think that is such we were actually doing a little space this morning on X, and we were talking about, and something that's been, different things become more apparent at different times, right? In terms of what's hitting our consciousness and what makes sense. And lately for me, it's been, and, you hear this, and I've heard this for, I don't know how many years, but for whatever reason, it's been popping up for me is I can be either this extreme, and I'm an extreme dude. I can just, that's how I have chosen to experience my life much of the time. But I can be one extreme or I can be the other, and generally the answer is right in the middle, right? And that's what I've been telling myself and sort of speaking about with folks lately, because that's the flow. I can either bounce off the sides, if I envision it like I'm scooting down a river. I can either bounce off the sides and get caught in the brush and hit rocks and all that sort of stuff, but in the middle it's probably a little deeper, a little more calm. I'm not going to get hung up on a tree branch. And if I'm trying to steer, like you said, go to the shore or whatever, once I grab that rudder, inevitably there's a problem. You're
gonna hit something.
Right. I start trying to steer the boat, and that generally means trouble. So no, that's wonderful. I love to hear that. One of my great mentors from early on used to say, and so many things make a little more sense and a little more sense over time, right? They just seem to connect or resonate. And my life for quite some time now has been what resonates versus what doesn't, and what sort of hits me right in the middle, and what kind of bounces me off the sides. But he used to say, and his name was Bud, and he said, resist not evil. And I'm not sure if it's from the Bible or not, honestly, but it's a great quote. Resist not evil or the appearance thereof. And that's exactly what we're talking about. That is exactly what our conversation is about, is not putting up that resistance to, and we define what we would say is evil or not evil, or right or wrong.
Yes.
And the entire journey is what's in that flow, what's life knows how to life. And I'm going to be using that, if you don't mind, probably from now until it all ends, but I love that saying, because life does, and I don't have to interfere, and I don't have to resist evil or anything else. And to me, that's just a beautiful realization to be in a position to come to. So, my story has been, one of starting and stopping and fits and starts and doing and not doing and doing different things and trying different things. And I've found wonderful things and daily practices for me that resonate and that work and that help me to continue to uncover, so that I'm more and more aligned with that source or that spring. What have you found for you that's beneficial to get you in that groove or that flow?
Meditation, sitting in awareness outside of my mind's activities, so that keeps me in the flow. when I'm in and chasing and following thoughts, it sends me all over the place. That's when I get uncomfortable. I get emotional. As you know, like everyone alive knows, you don't have to go anywhere, and nothing needs to happen in the present moment for you to get happy or extremely angry, for your heart rate to increase and you start sweating in your face, and you experience what you're thinking in your mind. Um, Becoming more aware that the mind does that and not falling into the traps and chasing the thoughts, being present and meditative in that way, that I'm being attentive to the moment, allows me to kind of stay in the flow and not fall into the traps of thought. Right. So that is one of the biggest things in my life. It's just being really aware of that, the trickery of myself, and the aspect of myself that is aware of that. And so I trust that's aware of my thoughts more than I trust my thoughts now. And so I'm able to notice myself. Sometimes I'm falling into the mind's maze without even noticing it. And then, but the moment I do, I can snap out and pull myself out of it and say, okay, wow, I really was going for a second, you know? And so that's what it really is. I like to stay what I consider meditative, all the time, in that space.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Right. That awareness of now and awareness of, and then, that can be, for me, it's meditation. For sometimes it's breath work. Sometimes it's walking up to a tree and truly seeing it and truly touching it and experiencing that that's what I'm experiencing. And that is, and sometimes it's just breath. So, yeah, that's wonderful. That's beautiful. And, those kinds of practices, I think, it's interesting because I've been able to, even fight myself when it comes to meditation over the years, which is hilarious, but it's true. Because I will, early on, I'd have a thought and I'd be like, oh, I'm not supposed to be thinking. And, I'm fighting at that point, right? Like and so, it's evolved over the years and it's been very different, over the years. But even in a sort of a pure, beautiful practice like that, like you said, it's the mind can just flit off, right? And the mind can just decide to do what it does. And, sort of bringing myself back and allowing myself to be, is a wonderful thing. And it's just a beautiful, like the here and the now. And just like you and I experiencing these moments together is just, it's here we are. And so happy and so grateful for that.
Yes.
I want to, have you let everyone know where they can find your book. Awareness is Evolution. I'm going to put it right up here, and so everybody can see it, by Khalil Banks. If you would not mind letting us know how to get a hold of that, that would be wonderful. And how to find you.
It's available on Amazon, but I mostly direct people towards the publisher, which is BookBaby. So if you go to bookbaby.com and click the three lines in the upper right-hand corner and go to the BookBaby store, it's available at the BookBaby store, paperback, ebook, and Audible. So there's an audio version as well. You can find me on X, of course, Twitter. I also have a TikTok space, and Instagram is there as well. And the books are linked in on all the social media spaces as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I have loved the book. I know my wife has loved the book. The boys, I haven't had them check in yet, but I'm sure they will. And I've loved our conversations. You know, today's conversation has been wonderful, and you know, all the conversations we've had up to this point have been just beautiful for me to experience. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Season 1, episode 1 of When I Stopped Fighting, the podcast. I appreciate you being here with me for this, Khalis. So thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
I've appreciated it all too, man. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.